So you got some apple juice and you got some cranberry juice. Let's make
some cran apple cider.
So this is going to be a really, really easy cider to do. Just super, super simple. The first thing I want to do though is hydrate our yeast. And for that, I'm going to shake the heck out of the apple juice to get all the goop off the bottom. Because that's like yeast nutrition and stuff. I mean, it's not, but it sort of is. It's all the stuff that fell out, proteins and whatnot. It's every little bit helps, okay? It's important. I don't mean to yell. It's just how I talk sometimes. And we're just going to hydrate. So I'm just going to pour a little bit of the apple juice off. Think about that much. A little bit more. And for yeast, we're going to be using Fleischmann's active dry yeast. Yes, it is bread yeast. Can you use a wine yeast if you want to? Sure. Can you use an ale yeast if you want to? Sure. I'm not offended.
For this, I would actually recommend using a cider yeast.
Yeah. It's only going to go to like 7 or 8%.
Yeah.
Bread yeast will work just fine. One of our cats is going nuts with the carpet next to us, so I'm sorry if you hear any of that. And I'm just going to pour it right into the apple juice. Now, we used to just hydrate into water, and what we found is that it didn't really do much. So we didn't really know, did it work? Is it good? Is it alive? So it was still kind of a guessing game. So putting it into a little bit of the juice should work a little bit better, and leave that to sit for a few minutes.
All right, so today's apple juice is Mott's natural apple juice.
I was just going to start talking about that. Let's look at the ingredients here. Apple juice, water, apple juice concentrate. Okay, that works for me. No ites, no eights, no extras, no nothing we don't want. I'm just going to dump this right in using a funnel. I don't mind splashing, I don't mind the foam, because oxygen in the beginning of fermentation is a good thing.
What is the volume of our apple juice?
This is half a gallon of apple juice.
Half a gallon or 2 quarts?
Yeah.
2 quarts. Or no, sorry. I was trying to be helpful and
She's trying to do the metric. It's 1.9 liters.
1.9, thank you.
Cranberry juice that we're using is actually Ocean Spray Original Cranberry Juice Cocktail.
Now, I think when we purchased this, we realized that was too much volume.
Yeah.
And I said, that's okay. I'll drink it.
Yeah, she will. So they call this cranberry juice cocktail, but I want to read the ingredients to you. Filtered water, cranberry juice, which is water cranberry juice concentrate. So it's from concentrate. Sugar, a little ascorbic acid, and vegetable concentrate for color. So it's not like some cocktails that have a whole bunch of different kinds of juices. This is actually cranberry juice. So that's why we ended up doing it.
Now, are we just eyeballing this?
I am eyeballing it. We're using a 1 gallon fermenter, so I'm going to eyeball it, and I know that I have a little bit more here to go back in, just half a cup to go in. So I'm eyeballing this, but it's going to be close to half a gallon. Because this container holds 3 liters or 101.4 fluid ounces. So if I wanted to use 64 ounces of it, I'd be using a little over half, which I'm almost there. Stopping. Because if I go much further, we could be making an issue here where the foam gets up in the airlock and up through the neck and makes a mess, okay? So we're not doing that.
Okay, so now we need to make some decisions. Is there anything else we want to put in here?
Yeast.
Other than the yeast? Do we want... Well, we know that the pH should
We don't know what the pH is at all. We have not checked it.
We have the technology.
That was a lovely segue, by the way. I'm going to grab my pH meter.
You're going to need a vessel.
So she just handed me this bowl. And where was this bowl?
In the organization.
Because everything that we use has been sanitized. I mean, you can see sanitizer fluid coming out of there. We put Star San in there, mixed with water, to the manufacturer's suggested. And that is what you want to do, because everything needs to be sanitized or else you risk an infection. There's a very simple recipe, but you don't want to mess it up by not doing the simplest thing of all, which is just sanitizing. So what I want to do now is I'm going to pull a sample out of here using sanitized equipment. Just going to put some right into this bowl. Probably a little bit more than that. Cran apple is just a great flavor combination. This is the Eric Hill pH meter. It's like $50 to $60 on Amazon, but it does so many things. It automatically temperature adjusts. Now, we're checking pH for acidity, because if it's too acidic, the yeast may not like it and they might not work very well. And what I'm seeing here is this is pretty acidic.
All right, question.
Yep.
You put the cranberry juice in on top of the apple juice, but did we mix it after doing that?
I did not actually mix it, so
I know it was mixed somewhat.
Let's do that over again. There's an important lesson. Make sure you mix everything up. I'm just going to...
I got your thermosaver bong out ready for you and everything, so you can oxygenate.
Well, okay.
Have fun.
We'll put a full stopper in there and shake the bejesus out. There's actually no bejesus in here because we didn't mix any sugar in. But I'm oxygenating it a little bit and mixing it all together. So it's kind of important. So here we go. Let's try this again. The reason she said that is because the cranberry juice is probably going to be more acidic than the apple juice.
Yeah.
So if I didn't mix them, we don't have an accurate reading. And it was reading pretty low. So let's...
I'm not sure that it's going to change that much, but better to be safe than sorry.
Okay, this is a little bit concerning. It's reading 3.23 pH. That's a little on the low side. I generally like to see at least 4, but even higher would be even better. So right after I rinse this guy out and put it away, I'm going to...
Do you want to mix baking soda in
Yeah,
there?
we're going to use some baking soda. Okay, there are a lot of ways to raise the pH. The simplest that a lot of people are going to have at home is baking soda. It can, if you add too much, change the flavor. So we're going to be careful, and we might not actually get it to where I want it to be, but we're going to buffer it a little bit. So I'm going to go with 2 teaspoons of baking soda. And yep, it did the experiment thing where it fizzles up because acids and baking soda mixed together, they create carbon dioxide gas and foam up. We all watched Mr. Wizard growing up, didn't we? If not, there's your science lesson. I'm going to use the wuss, also known as the whisk of unusually small size, to mix that up. I'm glad that she had me mix it in the bowl, because had I dumped that right in there, it might have...
been an issue.
Yeah. In we go. Every drop counts. All right, so I just want to give that a bit of a swirl, mix that through, and we're going to take another pH reading. Foamy. Okay, this is looking a lot better. Now, the reason why we want to raise that pH is because if it's too low, the yeast could stall. They could just not ferment anymore. They could never start, or they could die, all sorts of things. So if we want this to be able to finish fermentation properly and not stress those yeast, that's why we had to buffer it just a little bit.
Also, the fermentation process tends to acidify the brew. So if you do run into a stall, that might be another time for you to take a pH reading to see if perhaps it had gotten too acidic for the yeast to continue.
Yep, and right now we're at 4.53 pH. I am happy with that number. And our sample goes back in. We got a little bit of foam on the yeast, so we know they're good. We know they're happy and alive. Just kind of getting as much of it up there as I can. And gonna pour it right in. Okay.
Oh,
whoa.
Boop, 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 boop. Shit.
That's what's known as nucleation. Oh, here, depress this. Suck up some foam. It'll calm down. That's fun. That hasn't happened in a long time. But that is nucleation. That's what happens when, well, acid and, yeah, I mean, all sorts of things are going on in there. It's all good. Look at that. So now what'll happen is we just have to clean off the outside of the fermenter. And, you know, it's a little extra entertainment value for you guys. Before you put that airlock on there, I need to take the gravity reading. Yeah. We want to know what the gravity is so that we can calculate our ABV, know when it's finished, and know about where we started. So for that, I'm just going to get my hydrometer, get past the foam. I'm expecting it to be about 1.050 to 1.060, somewhere in that range. Okay, it's looking like 1.050. I'll just pour this sample back in.
All right. We have some stickage here, which, you know, Brian is not a fan. So do you want to wipe that off before I put this on?
Yeah, I'm going to rinse it off under the sink. I'll be right back. All right, outside the fermenter is clean. Airlock going in. Yes, you need an airlock before somebody asks. It's important. It keeps bugs out, lets the CO2 gases escape. If you just close this off with a lid or something, it's going to blow up. And I don't mean just like, I mean like boom, explode, flying glass everywhere. Never mind the sticky mess that'll be all over whatever place you happen to have had that.
Now, because we did our mad science experiment here with the addition of the baking soda, I am going to suggest that we put this on a cookie sheet with edges.
We should do that anyway.
In case things get crazy.
Yeah, that way if it does erupt or goes all over the place, we have a lipped tray that'll catch all of it so that you don't get stuff like this all over your kitchen or wherever you happen to be storing it. But we're going to go let this ferment. Probably take a couple weeks, and we'll be back in 2 seconds to show you how it's doing. It's been 3 weeks. We were sick. Life happens, you know? It just goes to show that it really doesn't matter that much. We're getting ready for a check because it looked like it was done. I think it's been done for quite some time.
You want to take the label and put it down so you can write your notes?
I'm going to take the label and put it down so I can write my notes. It's got a very interesting pinkish hue.
It's like a rosé.
Yeah. And it will actually clear out. It just takes some time. It's reading 0.996. So the first thing I want to do is get out the calculator the teacher said I would never have handy. It's right there. And let's calculate our ABV. Now, I normally use 135 as a coefficient, but because this is a little bit lower ABV, supposedly, I'm going to use 131.25. If you don't know what that means, when you figure out your ABV, using a different coefficient will actually change the number. But here's the thing, a lower ABV is going to have less alcohol than a higher ABV.
That's because it's not a straight line. It's actually kind of a curvy thing.
Right. But let me finish my statement.
Sorry.
A lower ABV has less alcohol than a higher. But alcohol is a much lower specific gravity than water. It's actually 0.79, so it's a lot lower than water. So the more alcohol there is by volume, the lower the specific gravity will be, which means you lose accuracy as you go up.
Yep.
So really simple. So we started at 1.050, we ended at 0.996, times 131.25 gives us it's about 7.1. We're gonna call it 7%. We just can't make low ABV. We just can't. I mean,
but we have plans for this particular one.
We do?
We do.
I don't remember what they are.
We're going to back sweeten it with juice, which
Oh,
is going
yeah.
to bring that ABV down to where we might want it. Yay!
Okay.
But right now...
Yeah, you know what I'd like to do with this, though? I think... I'm going to pour the sample back in.
So we're not racking it right now?
No, we're not going to rack it. It's not clear enough. I really want it to be more clear.
I didn't know if you wanted to rack it and then let it sit some more. And
We could do that. We could do that. I wanted to cold crash it, actually. We never cold crash anything, but I wanted to give this a cold crash.
Okay, you want to cold crash it on the initial yeast, or you want to rack it and then cold crash it?
I think we should rack it and then cold crash it.
All right, let me go get it for a minute.
So yeah, executive decision time. We're going to cold crash this, but first we're going to rack it into a vessel that'll fit into our fridge, because that's kind of important. I don't like to pour samples back in if I'm going to rack because it disturbs the lees and makes a mess, and then it's all cloudy, and then what's the point in racking it? As we always do, we use an auto siphon for racking. It's probably the easiest way to go. They're about 20 bucks, last a long, long time. I'm gonna leave the cap on the end because there's a Lee's cake in the bottom here and we don't want that getting in this. So easy, put the top in. This is our source, this is our destination. Make sure the destination is lower than the source and it's all good. We do have a full video on how to rack, so I just gave you the abbreviated version. I go about halfway down, get it started, and then we wait. Okay, it's been racked. Just gonna put a lid on it. Notice no airlock at the moment. What I'm gonna do with this one is just put some plastic wrap loosely over the top because the airlock won't fit into our mini fridge. And this is just gonna go in the fridge, get really, really cold. It's just barely above freezing. It's our beverage fridge, so it's very, very cold.
Also, this lid is grommeted and ready for an airlock. So if there are any degassing, because we haven't degassed this, it can degas naturally in the refrigerator without exploding our vessel.
Yeah, that's what the plastic wrap is for, just to keep anything from getting in there, even though it's in the fridge. I mean, what's gonna get in the fridge and then inside here? Yeah. But anyway, it's just to be on the safe side.
So when we're done with cold crashing, we'll be back to show you what's next.
So this has been cold crashing for about a week. Looks like it cleared a little bit, not too much, but I'm not gonna get too fussed because today we're gonna bottle it. But before we bottle it, there's some things that have to happen. First, I need to get this plastic wrap off of it because we just don't need this anymore.
Secondly,
we're gonna rack it.
We don't need that. No, we're putting the juice in first, remember?
Right. But before we even do that, because this has been sitting for a while now, I actually want to make sure that we have enough yeast to make an active natural carbonation. By the way, we're naturally carbonating this. What that means is in the bottle. So I'm going to use a little bit of Fleischmann's yeast here. Not much. I only need it's like a quarter teaspoon.
And the reason why we're doing that is we don't know how many viable yeasts are still in here because we've cracked it. And we've cold cracked it and we've done lots of things. Now, Brian wanted to use that juice. I actually want to use this juice. The reason being is we don't know what the pH is of that juice. Now, we could easily test it with our pH strips if you want to go that route. But because that is just cranberry, it could be not in range for our pH.
Would you sanitize this for me, please?
I will.
I actually got new pH strips. These are actually for making kombucha, and they actually go in half steps. So I thought that was a little bit more precise.
It's a more narrow range, but it's more precise. And so for our purposes, it works great.
And I like this particular one because you can just rip off as much as you need, and it has the gauge right there. So what I'm going to do is just hold one end. I gotta open it. Can you open it?
I can open it.
I need like 6 hands. That seems to be a common thing.
Oh, I don't know how that happened. Oh, you shook it. You shook it. That's why. There was some juice left over in the cap, but when I popped it, it squirted on me.
When you use pH strips, you do not want to consume it afterwards. So, she was right. You're right.
All right, so we're going to put this in.
It's reading somewhere around like a 2.5 or so pH, so that might be a little bit too much for the yeast. Very, very interesting. So I'm just going to use the same pipette. I could do it with a baster, but it's funnier this way. But now that we're doing it, I'm going to check this too. I want to know what the acidity is on this.
That's a good idea.
Because if it's too acidic, it's not going to carbonate.
Yeah, you probably should have checked that before we started doing this. It's okay, we got more yeast.
Yeah, we do. So that was obviously too acidic. Let's test this stuff though. Could you please rinse that in the Star San?
I will sanitize this again.
You now see the craziness that is us. We're like this all the time.
Now, some of you might say, well, you guys, you already checked the pH on this. And you're right, we did. But we didn't check it after the fermentation process was complete.
I'm going to call that a definitively different result.
And that is a definitively different result.
Wow. She squeaked. It's like 4.5 to 5. It's totally fine.
It's good.
It's totally fine. And that right there is the secret to knowing if it'll work versus not work. If that was too low, too acidic, it might not even carbonate. This little bit that we're going to mix in, the 32 ounces into this, probably isn't going to alter it much. And I know that putting more of this into there will make the acidity in here
even lower.
Even lower. And this is kind of like my
higher.
I'm just trying to mix the yeast in so that I can evenly disperse it throughout the whole batch. In case you missed anything that we're trying to do here, because it's been a little bit chaotic. We did go off the rails even for us.
As is the way.
Here is what we're doing. I have some bread yeast in this little container with some of the must and a tiny amount of the juice. The juice isn't important. The must, the cider. That's what it is. It's a cider. The cider is important because what we want to do is just get the yeast started a little bit, dissolve them into that liquid, and just get them going. What we're going to do now is this juice is going to go into this pitcher. I'm going to pour it carefully. What we're actually doing is back sweetening with this juice, but it's not really going to sweeten it because we're expecting it to ferment and turn into bubbles.
In other words, we're using the fermentable sugars in the juice as our fermentable sugars for the carbonation process.
Exactly. So, how did I come to this? There are 4 servings in this container. There are 9 grams of sugars in each serving. That means 36 grams of sugar. So 36 grams of sugars in the whole batch is about enough to carbonate. We could add a little bit of sugar if we wanted to.
But we don't want to.
Probably be petulant rather than truly hard carbonated. But it's okay because this is just another way of doing things. And I did this just because I don't think there's enough viable yeast in here to actually make a fermentation.
All right, so let's go ahead and rack into our pitcher.
And I'm going to do it without the cap because I don't really see any lees in here. So just go in halfway. Source, destination, source should be higher. Auto siphon, indispensable for this purpose. You really do want an auto siphon. I know people do it all different ways, but the auto siphon just works. Okay, we racked it. I can tell you, it actually smells really nice right now, but it's going to be totally different. That's why we're not doing a tasting until after it's been bottled and carbonated.
All right, so we need our stirring paddle to make sure our juice and everything is well incorporated. We also need our bottling wand,
Apparatus.
whatever you want to call it, to add to our siphon so we can bottle. And we need bottles, so we'll be right back.
So just as an extra verification, one thing I want to do is just take a quick pH reading of this liquid that we have here, the mixture now, just to make sure.
We didn't mix it, right? Well, I mean, it kind of mixed.
Yeah, it kind of mixed because Okay, we're green. We're super green.
Super green.
So I think we're good.
Bottles.
Okay, pardon the craziness that we got going on here now, but this is how things go. So I have here our yeast mixture that I'm going to dump in, and I'm going to not knock any bottles over and carefully mix this.
So in mixing, we want to make sure that everything is thoroughly incorporated because we want to have the same ratio of viable yeast and the fermentable sugars in each of our bottles, so that way we'll have consistent carbonation in each of our bottles.
Well, we shouldn't have a problem with the sugars because it was a liquid. It's the yeast. I want to make sure that we have enough viable yeast in each one just to chew up the little bit of sugars that are there. That's really all it is. We don't need to build a colony or anything like that. We just need enough to chew up some sugar.
At the same time, in stirring, we want to be very delicate with it because we don't want to add oxygen because we have alcohol present. Alcohol plus oxygen plus the acetobacter, which is everywhere, could lead to vinegar. Now,
Yeah, this is only 7%, so we are in the very much possible range for vinegar. Yeah, that just happened. Okay, so we're going to rack 2 bottles now, because that's all bottling really is. We have a dedicated video on bottling, a couple of them, I think. But for today, we are just going to use the auto siphon.
And a bottling wand.
Yeah. Can we?
So we gotta maneuver.
Yeah, it's like a maze sometimes.
Here, I don't... Brian puts the bottling wand onto the tube because it's kind of finicky. You want to make sure that it's on there good, but you want to make sure that it's not on there too good.
Yeah, if you can't get it back off, that's kind of a problem. But if you don't put it on hard enough and it comes off,
that's a bigger problem.
It makes a big mess.
Yeah.
I will just tell you, don't ask me how I know. And to bottle, it's the same thing as racking. You just take this bottling wand, you put it into the bottle.
They can't see.
I'm going to show it. I was going to hold it up. Can you just make sure that this stays in there?
Okay.
Okay. So, bottling wand into the bottle. See this little springy thingy on the bottom here? It's a... What kind of valve is that? I forget.
We keep just changing.
It's a springy thingy.
It's a springy thingy.
That's all I care about. What it does is when it's out like this, the liquid doesn't flow. When it's in, the liquid flows. So you put this in the bottle.
And you depress.
You depress. And then you start the auto siphon.
Are you ready?
Yeah, it's not going to work because we're not at different elevations here, but you can do that if you want to. She just wants to do the thing. So it'll flow a little bit because, you know, that's how the siphon will work. But if I pick it up, it stops.
Ta-da!
That's the secret of the bottling wand. It's like a $3 item. Like literally they're super cheap. Maybe they're like $6. I don't know, but they're super cheap.
Prices vary based on the location.
Yes. Get one and use it. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to change the elevation of this bottle to Derica's lap. Actually, no, I do the bottling.
You do the...
I'm the bottler. Okay. And when it gets really close, like up to about here in the neck, I take it out. Next bottle. That's it. So we're not going to show you the whole thing because we do have a video on bottling.
And I'll make sure to link that in the description below.
Right. Okay, we bottled. And we ended up with 8 16-ounce bottles and 1 wee little 12-ounce bottle. But I know some of you are probably asking, what is the ABV of this beverage? Now, it calculated at 7% just from the fermentation, but then we diluted it, but then it's going to carbonate, which actually is fermentation. So let's figure this out from scratch. So we have a 1.050. That's our starting gravity. Minus 0.996. That's 0.054 times 131.25, because this is a lower end ABV beverage, gives us 7.0875. So I'm going to call that 7%, okay, just for ease of math. Everything's going to be a little bit approximate here. We have a total of 140 ounces of the brew, but I know that 32 ounces of that was actually the cranberry juice. So the way I do this is 140 minus 32 is 108. So I have 108 ounces at 7%, so times 7. And then I add in the 32 plus 32 at 0 alcohol, so it would be 32. Divide that by 140, which is our total number of ounces, and we have 5.62%. So I'm going to call that 5.6%. But wait, there's more. We also added 36 grams of sugar into that 140 ounces. Now, this gets a little bit crazy because we have more than a gallon and we have less than a pound. So let me just show you how this works. If we use 36 grams, right, find out how much of a pound that is. So divided by 454. That gives me 0.079 pounds, right? So that means times 0.046 for a gallon of sugar, for a pound of sugar in a gallon would be 0.003 gravity. So it's like minimal. But we also diluted that a little bit. I'm not going to dilute it because it's just the numbers are getting too small. I'm just going to multiply that by 131.25 and we get 0.478. So it's almost 0.5%. Let's go with 0.4% instead of 0.478 just because of the rounding errors.
So it's roughly 6%.
So it's like 6% carbonated. And if it doesn't carbonate, it's less than 6%. But if it carbonates and goes completely dry like I expect it to, it's about 6%.
So these are going to get labeled. They're going to be put in our bomb shelter just for protection. And then our bomb shelter, for those of you who don't know, is just basically a heavy-duty plastic tub that we put these in with a lid. So that way, just in case something goes awry, aka when it explodes, they'll be contained in the tub and not spread across our house.
Now the next question is, how long does it take? Okay.
It takes that long.
It can take weeks. And it really depends on a lot of factors. How active your yeast was, how sweet and juicy your brew is, how acidic your brew was, what temperature you keep it at.
How much alcohol is in your brew.
Yeah, all these different factors play a part. For this one, I'm going to give it probably 2 to 3 weeks. And we'll be back at that point to show you its features. Okay, it's been 2 weeks. Put one in the fridge. Let's see if it carbonated. I heard a little tiny sizzle. But I see bubbles.
Yeah, it carbonated. I may have cheated and tested one earlier.
Oh,
it
yeah.
was gorgeous.
Yeah, most definitely carbonated. By earlier, she means yesterday.
Yeah. If you hear some noises in the background, again, cats, they've decided right now, right this very second, is the time to completely spaz out, run around the house like banshees, and scream the song of their people.
Like that. You might not hear it, though, because noise reduction works pretty good. All right, that bottle's done. But anyway, this is 6%, and it's 0.996 final gravity. So it's this is a dry cider.
It's a beautiful color. It is not clear at all, but I don't care.
It's not murky, though. It's just haze.
It's just haze. But
Slight
the
haze.
carbonation is staying. Is head retention a thing in cider? I don't even
No,
know.
it actually stays in beer because of more proteins and things like that.
It smells like a cran cider.
Yeah, it definitely smells cranberry and apple.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. It should be very crisp and very light and refreshing. Cranberry apple cider. I mean,
Yeah.
it
That's
tastes a little more fruity, sweet than you would expect for the dryness.
Yeah, and then you get that nice crisp apple tartness in the
And it's
after.
very juicy.
Yeah, yeah. This is lovely. This is fantastic. I would drink this
The
chilled.
carbonation really adds to it. Well, you got to drink it chilled.
Well, sure.
Carbonated, got to be
Yeah,
chilled.
I know, but I mean, it's perfect this way.
Warm carbonated beverages are just weird. I do want to speak 1 minute about natural carbonation. There have been a couple of reports, people have told me about it, and I did some digging, where sugar alcohols like erythritol, xylitol, sorbitol can harm yeast for fermentation. So that could affect carbonating if you use those things to sweeten. Now the question is, does allulose do that? Some people say it does. We've had suspicious carbonation fails with non-fermentable sugars. Now I don't know which ones were which. I'm sure somebody probably does by watching Adam. But this one, we did not sweeten at all.
Right.
And it carbonated. Now this was cold crashed and everything.
Oh, yeah.
And it's still carbonated. Now we did add yeast though to get it to carbonate.
Yeah, the other bottle that I opened yesterday was one of our amber swing tops, and it has a slightly more stiff closure.
Yeah, that one was a little loose.
So somebody has also mentioned that perhaps our swing tops might be the
Yeah, we might try bottle capping.
culprit, and that is a possibility because the amber bottle did seem to be more effervescent in its bubblage.
Yeah, but this definitely is carbonated.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I can see bubbles coming up in it, and I can definitely taste it.
Yep.
Repeatability on this one, because it's not sweetened and there's no extraneous weird stuff, this is a 9.5.
Yep,
I mean,
I agree.
If you can get the juices that we used, it's going to taste a lot like what we did. If you get a juice that's anything close to it, it's going to taste really, really good. Yep. Oh, that's right. This is the one that we used. We actually used the cranberry juice to carbonate.
Oh, it's right, to sweeten it. We sweetened it with juice.
We didn't even add sugar at all. This was just juices.
That worked really well.
It really did. It worked fantastically well. And cranberry is typically acidic, so it could have had some trouble, but it carbonated beautifully. So yeah, again, 9.5, easy for repeatability. This is one to make and just keep on hand.
All right, so the next score is our personal preference. How do we feel with this beverage? What is my relationship with this cranberry apple cider?
All right. I need another taste. You ready?
I'm ready.
1, 2, 3,
8.
7.5. I was bordering on 8.
I went for straight 8 because this makes me happy. I'm a happy girl. I'm not super excited, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. But there's nothing about this that is making me go, I don't like you. No.
I'd want it sweeter. That's the only thing that I would change. I'd want a little bit of sweetness added to it, but that would have changed the recipe and the method. So that's important. It's come up recently in our VIP lounge where people were asking about a sweet carbonated beverage. Now, that's kind of the holy grail because it's very difficult to do with natural sugars.
Yeah.
The only way I know of, and be 100% totally safe, is to add your sugar, pasteurize it, and force carb. For a natural carbonation to be sweet and carbonated is really, really hard to do because it requires pasteurizing partway through the process and still leaving some sugars in there, which means now you have a pressurized bottle that you're now heating up. We've done it, but it's a little bit risky. I am working on a new system though. We'll find out more as I get more research.
Because remember, natural carbonation is just a mini fermentation. So you need to have active yeast and you need to have sugars that they can eat on. But if when it's sweet, then you want more sugars than what they're going to eat, but you have no way of stopping them. And then when it's carbonated, see the problems? Yeah. All right. So we're working on that. But cran apple cider.
Yeah, I call this very, very
This is
good.
a winner.
This is an excellent cider. If you like dry ciders, you're going to love this. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.